This meeting is being recorded.
You're good.
That's funny.
There we go. Welcome to Cowbell Off Campus. I'm your host, Landon Young, along with my co-host, Addison Thigpen. We'd like to thank our sponsor first, maroonandwhitenation.com. It's a Mississippi State sports blog that produces content made for Mississippi State fans, just like this podcast. We're just two Mississippi State fans producing content for the average fan. So, Addison, we are back from week 4 of college football. And this past weekend, we said that there wouldn't be a great slate of games. Turns out there was more overtime games this weekend than there has been all season. And Ole Miss,
Crazy.
Tulsa, Auburn, Missouri, A&M, Arkansas, all going down to the fourth quarter of the game.
Yeah.
One of them's overtime game. Awesome weekend. Give me some thoughts. We'll start with Auburn, Missouri. What's your thought on the Auburn, Missouri game?
Yeah. Also, real quick, I think you did forget about Georgia and Kent State. It wasn't like
What
that.
the heck?
It wasn't like Georgia blew Kent State out. I mean, Kent State was in it in the fourth quarter,
Bro,
which was
I think
crazy.
you got that. I think you got that line right, didn't you?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I know that I picked them to cover because I mean, the only reason I did was because of the Sanford game.
Yeah.
Georgia didn't blow them out, didn't dominate, but this game was not what I was expecting. When I picked that, it wasn't like I thought that it was going to be close. But yeah, Kent State came out, and what a surprising game. I mean, that was just crazy. I still think Georgia's the real deal, but they got exposed because when Stetson's not on, then that their offensive production is down to nothing. And if they run that man against us, I know Will Rogers will light it up. So they got a lot to work on before they come Starkville.
Look, I know that we're not what we said we were before the season started, and we marked that game as like, hey, Davis Wade better be sold out. We've got a really good shot to win this game. I'm not saying that, but I am saying if they play like they did on Saturday, we'll beat them.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Yeah, if we play like we did on Saturday and they play like they did on Saturday, then we will win that game. So,
yeah.
But yeah, just to go to your question though, Missouri and Auburn, what a game that was. I know we were talking a little bit about it right before we hopped on here, but I do feel bad for Missouri. I mean, that was so tough. I actually remember one of the key moments for me as a State fan, actually the one that I realized I was like a really big Mississippi State fan, was when we played Arkansas several years ago, and Vic Ballard fumbled out of the back of our end zone. Ripped my heart out. I literally, against Arkansas, it's not like it was a massive game for us or anything. I mean, it always is when we play them, but yeah, that's literally when I remember that I hated to lose as a Mississippi State fan. So that was a key turning point for me as a Bulldog, and so I'm sure that was the same way for a lot of Missouri fans this weekend. That sucks. I will say every time I turned it over there that it looked like the two worst SEC teams I've ever seen play, and it was really sloppy, no execution.
I don't think you're wrong.
Two honestly not good teams. But at the end of the day, Mizzou. Getting a little static over here. I think I'm frozen.
You're good on my end.
Okay, good. But yeah, other than that, I think that just Auburn, they kind of came out with a win. It was kind of a lucky win at home for them. I really don't think that they were the better team by any means. So
yeah, it's exactly what happened to us. We fumbled in the end zone just to end the game against Arkansas. You really just brought back some pain points for me. I need to go to counseling. But that was just a crap show of a ball game, like you're talking about. Not two great SEC teams. Ole Miss Tulsa was another game that kind of went down to the wire that no one really thought would go down to the wire. Mm-hmm. But as soon as Tulsa opened up the game, I knew that they could hang with them. What were your thoughts on that game?
I agree. I totally agree. And yet again, I think they got a little bit, OEM got a little bit exposed there. If you can keep Dart on, if you can force him to throw, but stop him from being just super effective on his feet, I think that he's somebody like a Jaden Daniels or somebody we can beat, but we just cannot let him beat us with his feet. I mean, and I think that that's something we'll have to, honestly get better at through the season here. We're going to have to make sure we're tackling quarterbacks, because at the end of the year, he's going to be somebody that, he is athletic. Don't get me wrong. And the kid's got a cannon. If they can work out his kinks, he will be a great quarterback. I hate to say it. I mean, he really will be. But as of right now, he's just not there yet. And OM's got a ton of work to do, especially on the defensive side of the ball, to get ready for SEC play here.
Do you think that Tulsa wins potentially if their quarterback doesn't get hurt in the first quarter?
I think that has a lot to do with it for sure. I mean, yeah, they were moving with him. They still played pretty well, but yeah, absolutely. When your starter goes down, especially on a team like Tulsa, it's not like they've got 2 or 3 studs,
Right.
coming off the bench. It definitely matters.
I I thought the kid looked great. I was like, dang, it almost looked like a version of the Leach offense that they were
Yeah,
running. And I was like, oh, this looks really good against that Ole Miss defense who hadn't allowed a touchdown in a really long time. And so I
yeah,
was like, that they're moving, and I like to see it.
yeah.
Last game we'll hit on before we recap our game. A&M Arkansas to end the night was a great game to watch, although another crap show of a ball game.
It really was. I mean, just not a great game overall. I mean, Jimbo Fisher's surviving by the skin of his teeth right now. I mean, he's got to be in the hot seat, I would imagine. And man, how does he come in and pull these games out? Like this is why the AP poll puts him in the top 25. This is why they get the recognition every year. They've got the talent to finish these games. They just have to do it, and they did this weekend. Yeah, it came down to a field goal. But really, what it came down to was that one play at the beginning of the game, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. One of the craziest plays I've ever seen in a college football game. It was absolutely wild. And that's what it came down to was that play that they literally won by 1 point because of that. So
You could feel Auburn's team just deflate Arkansas's team deflate as soon as it happened.
yeah,
It's like, and when you stretch the ball across the goal line, stuff like that's bound to happen. But for them to take off run, hand it to him behind his back, and the dude take it to the house, I was like, what is going on?
yeah, what just happened?
It was bizarre, and you could just feel the turning. That was definitely the turning point of the game. And
Yeah,
I don't think A&M's the better team, and I think pretty much on the stat sheet you look at it, and Arkansas is the better team. But you're right. Jimbo has found ways to win games, and he is hanging on. Speaking of
yeah.
hanging on, I meant to ask you this about the Auburn game. Do you think Brian Harsin would have been fired if they had lost?
I don't know. I don't know if he'd be fired right away. I think and if he was, I think it's kind of a bad call right now. I think they need to get the guy through the season. I don't necessarily think he's a great fit, especially with all the stuff happening in the all season before. But I mean, and I think he was possibly could have been a good fit, but I just think now there's too much stuff going on over there. But I think with all that being said, I think they should wait to the end of the year just so they can really get him through his contract this season and have some time to get a good quarter or a good coach in there. I think it's really important for them for their next hire to be a good hire because I honestly don't think they've made the best decisions the last couple coaches they brought in. But
I agree. Okay, so moving on to our game, Bowling Green recap. We'll recap our weekly segment of what went right and what went wrong, and then we'll kind of hit on some different topics of that game moving into next week. We're actually going to do a Thursday show this week, so we'll end today's show by doing our SEC picks of the week, and then on Thursday we will preview the Texas A&M Aggies. And I'm so excited to talk about them because
yes,
there's a lot of things that we just need to play a clean game on Thursday, and we'll talk all about that Thursday. So be sure to tune in. And also, we'll answer your questions on Thursday. So be sure to send in your questions to M&W Nation on Twitter. All right, Bowling Green recap. The Dogs win 45-14. I don't know if I should go to Vegas right now or what, but I called the score to be 45-14. I wrote it on all my articles. I said it here on the podcast. Like, are you gonna pay me or am I gonna
I think actually what happened was Ra dropped that pass, and that's all I'm gonna say because I had predicted us to score 52. So if Ra catches that one pass, and I'm all on the money there.
You're not wrong. We'll talk about that here in just a second. So we've kind of made this into a good weekly segment of our show, but we're here with the guy, Addison Thigpen, the guy that knows everything about Mississippi State football, to tell us what went right and what went wrong this past weekend versus Bowling Green.
Yeah, well, I can. I do want to start out with what went wrong. I think there was one big glaring gap on our team for us this weekend. I think that was our secondary on defense. I think just consistently we just got burned. And even Forbes himself. I mean, I don't think he played a great game. There's a couple times where I would see somebody open, and I would be surprised that it was his guy. And that was when we were running man coverage. So I mean, there's no excuse for that. I mean, especially when he's our guy on in our cover corner there. I just think we just looked a little weak on that end. I mean, they had guys that were open sometimes where they wouldn't connect passes. Which, if you're playing any team in the SEC, any of these teams we have upcoming, they're going to hit those passes. I don't care if it's Arkansas that doesn't have as great of a throwing team or whatever. I mean, it's just when you play better talent, they're going to connect. And so I feel like there was a lot of gaps there. With that being said, the blitz packages that Zach Arnett draws up are just beautiful and unique, and I love it. And the way that he utilizes our secondary in the blitz package is freaking genius. I mean, at the end of the game, there was like one moment where we moved a couple guys around and we brought the guy who got hurt, and I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, out of the backfield. I don't know why I can't think of his name, but he came in through wide open and smoked their quarterback. It was a beautiful blitz, and I can't think of the guy's name. He plays on our defensive backs. And I'll think of it in a second. But anyways, it was just a great play. But I think when it came to like actually dropping in coverage and actually like playing man coverage, it was tough. Yes, yeah, it was Duncan. Yes,
Duncan.
It was.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I don't know if he's like actually hurt that bad. I know he kind of had to come off the field a little bit there towards the end, but yeah, no, he the way that he was drawing up packages for Duncan was just absolutely fantastic. I know there was like one play in particular that I remember that was a really, really good looking blitz, but when it came to covering the receivers, we just didn't look too good there. I think that was a glaring negative for us this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the same thing down on my end. The defensive backs, they struggled, and you're right.
Yeah.
We're gonna get burned. There's gonna be times where we get burned. Hey, I'll say this about Zach Arnett. I think obviously we're paying him good money to stay. This could be his last season with Mississippi State. He's made Mike Leach look really good in games, because a lot of the games that we've lost, it has never been the defense's fault. And which is weird with a Mike Leach team, because typically in his past, it would be blamed on the defense of this high scoring ball game between both teams that Leach lost because he just couldn't score enough points, but the defense actually lost the game. That's not the case here. Zach Arnett's legit. Zach Arnett can draw up some defensive plays that are solid. His front seven that he's got right now are ridiculous. And I know we got a question last week about how Mike Leach shows no emotion or whatever. Yeah. That dude shows some emotion. I think he makes up for no emotion from Mike Leach, because that dude gets fired up. He's already got a penalty once this season. He got a warning on Saturday playing Bowling Green. So like, come on, like this guy's got some emotion. So
yeah.
Okay. So you filled us in. What went wrong? What went right on Saturday? There's a few things that you could say of what went right.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a couple things. First off, something we touched on the podcast last week, something that we said was a must-have. We just threw the football a ton. I know that's crazy to say in the air raid offense. But obviously we've been running the ball a little bit more this season, but we just didn't do that. We just opened up throwing it. One thing that I had mentioned was that I wanted to see Caleb Ducking's hands hurt at the end of the game, and goodness they were. I mean, we lit him up all night long. I think we really just we tore the air raid up. We tore the skies up. We went to back to Jaden a little bit more. We saw we saw all of our receivers, honestly. Tulu really did a good job coming out of the slot this game. I feel like he was more active than we've seen all season. Honestly, we just threw the ball. I mean, we did a ton. I think Will Rogers was really good with execution, making quick decisions. Honestly, the air raid just looked good. It wasn't a lot of dump passes, honestly. And one thing that I noticed too is, like, even the deep passes we've seen Will throw this year have been a lot of lobs, a lot of lofted passes, but he was gunning some. Like, we had some guys come over the middle, and he was showing his cannon, and he really does have a good arm. And it was kind of good to see that this weekend on some different passes.
It's easy to talk about the wide receiver group the whole time on the show, because that's who we're seeing get the ball the most, them and Will Rogers. And you mentioned all of these guys and what you just said, but is Wally back?
I think so, to some degree. He's definitely somebody that teams are gonna have to remember that he's there. I think I heard, actually it was crazy. It was some stat that said he had caught a pass in like 29 consecutive games for us, which is absolutely absurd. That's awesome. And I mean, it just shows that he is somebody that is super consistent and that we can rely on. So yeah, definitely teams need to look at him, because if they don't, we'll find him, and he'll catch passes, and he'll catch touchdown passes for us too. So.
And is Ducking the guy?
Yeah, 100%, no doubt. It's one of those things we've been leaning towards all year. He's dropped the most passes this year for us. But now after that game, I mean, he didn't drop one, and he was very consistent. He's a yards after the catch type dude. I noticed he was breaking tackles a lot. He's a playmaker. He disrupts the game, and he's somebody that I'm super excited to see grow with this offense.
I totally agree. And of course, I love his touchdown celebration.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, I love it. Yeah. And then they copied it over there to Miami. I did see that. I don't know if you've seen that.
The Jalen model.
Yeah.
Did you see Affleck tweeted him? Ducking.
I didn't see that. No,
If that's not a perfect NIL deal for that setting up, like I would, if I was ducking, I'd be jumping all over that.
All over it. You already got the two ball coaches over there, doing it, and Saban and the one in Jackson State. So Dion
pay some real money. Next question about a wide receiver: does Austin Williams have the yips?
Yeah, I think so. I'm gonna go again. I'll probably say it all year this year. It's that commentator from opening week 1, who called him Mr. Reliable. We need to blame it on that guy. Yeah, when Austin Williams dropped that pass, I was just, and you could see it on his face the moment he dropped it. I was just like, what's going on right now? It sucks. I think what we need to do is we need to get the ball in the guy's hands on some easy passes, something. I mean, we just need to get the guy a couple catches to get him back in the groove. Because if we slow down our production to him, then it's just going to kill him. Then when we need him in some tight moment, in some close moment, he's not going to be good because he's not going to have confidence in himself. We need to get his confidence back.
I agree. And he came back at the end of the game and he caught a pass, but I don't know that we're going to see him in big time moments anymore. I think Leach immediately as he saw that was like, I've got some guys who can catch the ball. And that brings me to my next guy. Tulu is unreal. We have to get the ball in the kid's hands. If we're not utilizing Ducking and Tulu Griffin at the same time, it just doesn't make sense. Those are two guys that defenses would have to stay at home for. They have to guard both of those guys. You get Tulu across the middle, my guy's getting 15 yards. You get Ducking deep, he's going to catch the ball. Like these are guys that they would have to guard, and I don't understand why they're not on the field at the same time. It doesn't make any sense.
It is weird to me too, especially when you see Tulu just have the game that he had. I mean, he's such a playmaker too. I just feel like there's things that we could do with him outside of just a typical pass play that would open up our offense. I mean, I will say to that point, we ran the screen a little bit more, the screen pass a lot more, like spreading the field out, which I like. I mean, it's still a short pass, different than the dump off, different than just like a little over the middle short. And I know we do that. I know that's part of our offense, but I do feel like I saw that a lot more against Bowling Green. And a lot of those were going to him. And I think that's just because hopefully we're trying to get him more involved in the offense. Because man, he is so fast, such a playmaker. And I know he's not a big dude, but he does get yards after the catch almost every time he catches the football. So
and I don't have the stat in front of me. Maybe we can find it before Thursday's show, but man, I wonder how many yards he's averaging on kickoff returns. It's got to be top 5 in the nation because he's getting to the 30, 40 almost every time, which puts us in such great field position that it changes our offense. I love that kid, and I really want to see him utilized a little bit more. That brings up our next wide receiver, Ra Thomas. You mentioned this already. The kid is going to be a part of our offense. He's just too big not to be. Like, he's going to beat people. He beat people on Saturday. He beat people against LSU. He had the most unbelievable catch against LSU whenever he reached over the dude's head and mossed him. Yeah. And it's like the kid's good. But, man, he's got to get consistent. And that drop ball that Will Rogers put in his breadbasket, I just couldn't believe my eyes when he dropped it. And those are the type of plays that will cost us big games down the road.
It will. They absolutely will. It's just unacceptable in the offense right now. Honestly, and that's one thing I was telling my dad, or we were talking about over the weekend, especially after the week before against LSU, where drop passes kill you across the board from several receivers. We had drop balls. We absolutely cannot let that happen, number one. But number two, I wonder what Leach is doing behind the scenes. Like when Austin Williams drops his pass, Ra drops that, or these guys need to be running miles in practice. You know what I mean? Like you drop a ball, you run a mile. That's remember the Titans in a nutshell right there. And I know the old ball coach there was saying it. So that, Leach needs to implement that a little bit on the team here. And I hope he is. I hope that there's a lot of emphasis on if you do drop this ball, then like you're coming off. So we got to readjust something. I still want to get back to these guys because going back to what I said about Austin Williams, it's important to build their confidence up so that this doesn't continue to happen. But yeah, with Ra, man, I hate to see that because you made a really good point about him going up and making that snag against LSU, against other teams we've had this season. The guy's a player. He's somebody that I thought was going to be our stud, but honestly, I kind of knew Caleb was going to be the guy. I just really wanted Ra to be that guy just because of the presence that he is. I still think that he has a very big role to play on the offense. If Caleb's our guy, if Tulu's our little playmaker, we need a big, tall dude that is a target. That if anything, receivers are putting, and he's gonna be a mismatch every time. If they've got their best cornerback on Jalen, they got somebody else that's pretty fast watching Tulu, then they're not going to have somebody that's as tall and athletic as Ra to guard him as well. It's a mismatch every single time. And we can go find him 1 to 2 times a game on a pass like that, where he does catch a big touchdown for us. And it is a contested pass where he has to go make a play on a cornerback. But with that being said, I think that's the role he's playing. So he's got to catch the ball when the ball comes to him. I don't think he's going to get 15 passes a game, but the 3 or 4 that he does are going to be crucial, just like that one we saw on Saturday.
Yeah. And dude, as we're talking about all this, I'm a little spoiled through the first 3 weeks or through the first 3 years of Mike Leach's offense because, man, we just rolled through talking about 5 different wide receivers that are all really good wide receivers.
Yeah.
We've never had that at Mississippi State.
Never.
And like I've spoiled myself of the consistency that we've had because all of these guys are better than any guys we've had in the past. And
they really are.
It's fun to watch as a Mississippi State fan who's seen us run the ball over and over and over again every year. This has been a fun 3 years, and I think that we're just going to keep getting better and better. So,
yeah.
Oh, I have one more question for you. What were your thoughts on Mike Leach's statement at the end of the game about the second team not doing so well?
I totally agree. And to go back to your 45-14 prediction, yeah, you nailed it on the head. But our second team played like trash, per Mike Leach. So we should have scored some other points there. I mean, I love that he said that. Give them no room for mistakes. I mean, and he's absolutely right. When we get into SEC play, which we're getting ready to do, we got the toughest stretch of our schedule coming up. We've got to have talent coming off the second string, coming off the bench, because not if guys are getting hurt, just if we need relief. You know what I mean? It's not like Nathan Pickering can run out there and line up on the defensive line every single snap. I mean, he can, but how productive is he going to be in the fourth quarter when he's done that for 30 minutes?
Right.
We need some people to come off the bench and step up and be players.
Love Mike Leach. Love how real he is. He's just, when he's talking football, bro, he does not elaborate. My man is to the point. He's blunt, and he's like, all right, let me go get in the locker room. And he's out. So loved hearing that as well. I just think that we're going to have to find some ways to stay in the fourth quarter and stay energized in the fourth quarter because if not, we'll lose some big games.
Also, I did look up our returning stats here. So
you found it?
Tulu's number 14, but if you count that one that he did return that got pulled back,
oh my gosh,
he'd be number 3 or 2 in the country, right? Or number 4 in the country right now.
What's it? So, does it say his average?
His average is 33 and a half a return, and that's just kickoffs. Which
so
is
every time it's past the 25, it's like guaranteed past the 25-yard line if he touches the ball.
He's guaranteeing us yards, which is massive.
Jeez. Hey, so what do we need to carry over into Texas A&M this weekend that we did well this past weekend against Bowling Green?
I'm just gonna keep it up. Same thing last weekend. We got to throw the football. We got to keep it in the air. I want to see our running backs like we have. I want to run more. I want to keep the run in the offense. Obviously, we barely ran this weekend. I would like to see a little bit more run production, but I just want us to throw the football. I mean, I want Will Rogers to light it up just like he has been, just like he did. I don't want to see dump passes. I do, but I really want to see us go into the air. I want to see a lot from Jaden. I want to see a lot from Ra. I want to see a lot from Tulu. I want to see a lot from Caleb. I want to see a lot from all of our receivers, and I think we can have a big weekend here. But I really want to see us just tear it up to the air.
Love it. I'd say the same thing. Will Rogers is our guy. That's what we have to carry over. We didn't even talk about him that much, but dude threw for 406 yards and 6 touchdowns, tying his record for touchdown passes in a single game.
Yeah,
that kid's good, and he's only getting better. He had so many good throws. I didn't even mention the throw that he threw to Wally where he barely threw it over the dude's fingertips on the run. It was just a money pass, one of the best throws I've ever seen him make.
mm-hmm.
I think we've got to carry that over into Thursday, but we'll talk more about the Texas A&M Aggies and their yell leaders on Thursday. And
can't wait for that.
So let's end our show today with our SEC picks. We'll roll through these. Opening up the morning, I cannot wait for this game. Number 7 Kentucky at number 14 Ole Miss. Ole Miss is favored by 6.5.
That is an absolute. Yeah, that is one of the toughest picks I think we'll have all year. OM kind of got exposed this last weekend. With that being said, we didn't really talk about it a ton. So did Kentucky. They only beat Northern Illinois by I don't even think a full touchdown or right at 8 points, I think. So both teams coming off close wins against opponents that they should be able to dominate. So it is tough. With that being at OM, and you said that OM was favored by what was the line?
6.5.
6.5. Oh
Mhm.
man, you know what? I'm actually going to say Kentucky covers that. I think they go on the road. I think they're better than they're getting a lot of credit for this year. I say that they're like number 8 in the country right now, so I guess they are getting a lot of credit. But I think they are pretty. Yeah, it does me too. I do not think they're a top 10 team. I will say that. But I do think they have a pretty good program over there. I think that coach is doing a pretty good job. I think they cover that. I don't know if they win the game, but I do think they cover the spread.
Gosh, I hope Kentucky wins, but I've got a bad feeling that they're going to Ole Miss and Ole Miss wins by a touchdown. So I'll actually pick Ole Miss on this one.
I'm nervous on that one too.
Great slate of games besides these two. East Washington at Florida. We'll pick Florida. There's no line. South Carolina State at South Carolina. There's no line. So South Carolina. Alabama, number 2 Alabama at number 20 Arkansas. Alabama's favored by 17, a road favorite, 17.
I think Alabama covers. I do think Arkansas is good enough to keep this game close, but I just after seeing what we saw against A&M last weekend, Alabama's not looking the greatest. Honestly, I know they had a dominating win against Vandy. 55-3 is obviously a butt whipping, but it wasn't. It didn't look like a typical 55-3 Alabama game just from what I watched. So I do think that they cover that. I think Alabama covers, but they are not looking extremely impressive to me this year.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Alabama tries to make a statement in Fayetteville this weekend. Wins by more than 3 touchdowns, so I say they cover.
Yeah.
LSU at Auburn. LSU's favored by 9.
Yet again a tough one. At Auburn, that's always a tough place to go play. Jordan-Hare is a lit, packed, big, fun stadium. But I do think LSU on the road goes and covers. Auburn's just looking pretty weak this year. I want LSU to go cover this game. Obviously, since they beat us, I want them to look as good as they possibly can for the rest of the season. But I think they should. They should definitely go cover this game.
I think so too. I got LSU. Number 1 Georgia at Missouri. Georgia's favored by 28.
This is so tough. Yet again, last week Georgia didn't look great against Kent State. I mean, it wasn't necessarily like a nail biter at the end, but I mean, for Kent State to even be in that game is crazy to me. That's such a big line too. I do think Georgia should absolutely destroy Missouri. That is a really big line in an SEC game, but I'm still going to go that Georgia covers.
Yeah, 28 points is a big line, but I think Georgia tries to do the same thing Alabama's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
They'll go to Missouri, make a statement, win by more than 4 touchdowns. We'll do another random game this week of outside the SEC. Number 9 Oklahoma State at number 16 Baylor, and Baylor's favored by 2.5.
I'm gonna go with my big orange team over there, OSU. I don't know why, but I like OSU. I like old Gundy. I think that they've got something going. I love that they're ranked. I think they go beat Baylor. Let's go LSU.
I'll take the Baylor Bears since they're right down the road from me, which I guess both
There
of
you
these
go.
teams kind of are. But I'll take the Bears since they're at home. All right, that will end today's episode of Cowbell Off Campus. We recap the Bowling Green game today. On Thursday, we will preview the A&M Aggies, discuss what the Bulldogs need to do to win the game, talk about our playmakers that really need to play well. Then we will answer your Twitter questions. So be sure to send in your tweets to M and W Nation before Thursday. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you guys then.